Helping national security, impacting Northeast Florida. Those are the headlines for Congressman John Rutherford. The lawmaker joins us in studio to discuss appropriations, planning on rebuilding the military, and enhancing services for veterans. Also from the Senate.
But ultimately, I was elected in 2010 and re-elected on a very specific pledge, and that is to repeal and to replace Obamacare.
Marco Rubio describes what's next in the health care battle. He also addresses tax reform. Plus, the roller coaster ride through Washington. One of our political pros debates the effect on President Trump's agenda on This Week in Jacksonville. And thanks so much for joining us this morning. U.S. Representative John Rutherford joining us as well. Congressman, great to see you again.
Good to be with you, Kent.
And I know we wanted to start by talking about something you've been excited about doing, some work here concerning military and veterans. And I guess from what I've read and what you've been accomplishing, it starts with making sure the money is there to do the right kind of things, appropriations.
Right, yes. The Make America Secure Act was passed, and that is going to bring those dollars that we need for our Department of Defense particularly. And what that's going to mean specifically for Naval Station Mayport is, I think, eventually 12 LCS ships, 3 in this budget cycle, 2 DDG-51 destroyers, I think 14 Super Hornet aircraft, attack aircraft, and we're really beginning to re-strengthen our military.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Particularly here in Northeast Florida.
That's what it sounds like. This isn't just a shifting of where some assets are already. There's been an effort to rebuild in the Navy and our other branches, right?
Absolutely, and Kent, it's critical. When you look at what's going on around the globe, we need these resources. Our men and women out there, they deserve to have the best equipment available, and that's our job.
Yeah. One of the things I saw there, funding for the Department of Defense, as you mentioned, Veterans Affairs, energy, but also water infrastructure initiatives and southern border security. So how do those last 2 items factor in?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, as you know, the about $1.6 billion for the southern land border. And that will involve, some places it will involve a physical wall, as President Trump has mentioned. In some other areas, that will actually look more like probably an electronic fence, if you will. And the key is, what I tell folks, Kent, is I don't care what you build. A wall is not a barrier. It's an impediment. It's simply going to slow people down. And the key to this process of securing our border is to slow them down, detect them when they breach it, and then have the resources and intelligence communications to be able to actually home in, track those people, and then apprehend them. And that takes boots on the ground. And so we've also focused very heavily on our Customs and Border Patrol agents, hiring more of them, making it easier for them to get them on board by hiring military folks, bypassing the polygraph situation, which was really slowing down the process. Why polygraph somebody that just came out of it? He's got a top-level security clearance with the Marine Corps, and now you're going to make him go through a polygraph. Didn't make sense.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more on the veterans component. I want you to hear from Senator Marco Rubio. We spoke with him this week, and you're going to hear a little bit more from him throughout our show. But one of the things that he was talking about was Veterans Choice, and this is something that I want to hear your reaction to. Veterans Choice program is something Senator Rubio says that he supports, but admits it needs some improvement.
The choice program needs to continue to be reformed, and as we figure out things that are happening that aren't working well, we got to go back and fix those. But we can't let it die. We certainly can't let it go away. A choice program has been critical. Northeast Florida is home to a lot of veterans, and you shouldn't have to wait in line. If the local VA can't see you, if there's a local hospital that has a better option for you, you should be able to do it. And so we're not going to let the choice program go away, and so that's why you saw strong bipartisan support. It wasn't controversial. Does the program need to be improved? Absolutely. The choice program as it's currently structured is not perfect, and it needs to be improved, but making it collapse was not the answer, and so that's why it's important to do what we did yesterday.
Congressman, I know that I saw that there was something this week where you and Congressman Lawson said, hey, this is a bipartisan thing. We are in favor of the Veterans Choice Program. Are there improvements that you think need to be made as well?
Yes, and in fact, we funded some of those improvements in the IT arena. But part of the problem with the Choice Act program is when we outsource veterans to these private facilities to get the health care that they deserve and the quality of care that they deserve, the payment process breaks down. And so we have a lot of providers that no longer want to treat our veterans because they're not getting paid, some of them for months and months and months. And so it's an IT problem. We've put some money in the budget to fix that portion of the choice program. But it is, as you heard Senator Rubio say, it's very important that this choice program continue. It allows us to cut down on those wait lines, but it also allows us, veterans who, we think just about urban situations. Well, there's a lot of rural areas in this country too where we have veterans who are being forced to drive past 2, 3 hospitals on their way to a VA clinic. If they live more than 40 miles away from a VA clinic, they should be able to go to the nearest facility of their choice. And that's what the Choice Act is all about. Providing good quality care in an efficient and effective manner. And so I'm very supportive of the program. It also, quite frankly, Kent, builds some accountability into the VA system.
Which people were clamoring for in the last couple of years.
Exactly.
With the VA.
Exactly.
Yeah. Last thing, I'd just like to hear from you. I know that one of the things in the Veterans Choice Program that we heard about here is there's some money in terms of a replacement outpatient clinic in Jacksonville, some $18.5 million. That'll make a difference, right?
Yes, that will. We're not sure where we're going to locate that yet, but right now it will replace the 2 facilities that we're leasing at South Point and on University Boulevard. Well, I get numerous calls about our Jefferson Street Clinic and what a great job that they do. But we need this facility that will, again, provide treatment and care in a convenient manner for those who are living in the south end of this district particularly.
When it's not convenient to get right downtown
exactly.
to that Jefferson Street.
Exactly.
So. Congressman, I appreciate it. I know that I invite you to come by when you can, and here we are in recess. Great to hear from you and what you're doing to try and make a difference for folks in Northeast Florida.
Always good to be with you, Kent. And, we're looking forward to this bipartisan committee to repeal and replace the ACA and get people the kind of affordable health care that they deserve.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about that for sure.
That's the civilian side.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. So before we go to a break, an important part of the application process for becoming a U.S. citizen is passing a civics test covering U.S. history and government topics. So there are 100 civics questions on the naturalization test. How would you do? Here's one of those questions that you might find. The idea of self-government is in the first 3 words of the Constitution, we the people. So what does the Constitution do? The answer coming up after our next interview. All right, in our recent interview with Senator Marco Rubio and some reaction to what's happening in Washington from a man who used to work for a Senator, Bob Graham. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville as Chris Ham joins us.
This is an important message for Florida homeowners. If your home was built before 1975, you may have cast iron pipes that are corroding right beneath your feet. Corroding pipes can cost thousands of dollars, if not more, to replace. Many insurance companies may change your policy to exclude damage from these pipes. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. To find out if your home is affected, visit pipelawsuit.com or call us now at 800-888-1234.
Make tomorrow awesome with Xfinity Internet from Comcast. Call 1-800-800-1883 today. And do what you love online with Xfinity Internet for only $19.99 a month for 12 months. Xfinity Internet delivers the speed you need to surf, stream, and download. Plus, with Constant Guard by Xfinity, your family will get unmatched online security, and it's included at no additional cost. Call 1-800-800-1883 today and get speed, security, and value from Xfinity for an amazing price. Xfinity delivers reliably fast internet speed and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience. Get started with Xfinity Internet for just $19.99 a month for 12 months. It's all backed by our 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's risk-free. Experience speed at a great low price from Xfinity. Call 1-800-800-1883. That's 1-800-800-1883. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
Mom life is a wildlife. Then some days the animals run the zoo. But it's worth it for the bear hugs. And when it comes to feeding time, you've got this. Land O'Frost Premium Lunch Meat. Lots of protein, perfect for their lots of energy. When they love it, you'll find a moment of peace in the jungle. Land O'Frost, what those wild ones want to eat. Oh, I'll take it. Okay.
Uptown Civitan Club invites you to tee up for Pine Castle. It's an August 27th event at Topgolf. Order tickets at pinecastle.org.
Harrell & Harrell is a personal injury law firm that fights for truth, safety, and justice. That's what we do. If you feel your loved one is being abused or neglected, please feel free to give me a call. I will walk you through it. I will help you through the process, and we'll make some good decisions.
Bounce houses, a huge hit for all kids. All-day fun that comes with a serious risk.
It's like tying your child to a kite.
News 4 Jax exposing a deadly threat.
Does that make this less safe?
And how you can avoid this same disaster.
The best way to protect yourself is to...
Blown Away. Tuesday, starting at 5 on News 4 Jax. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And this week we had an opportunity to speak with U.S. Senator Marco Rubio. He joined us on the morning show and spoke with Bruce Hamilton. So we asked about tax reform and whether Republicans will try to accomplish that on their own, like they tried on health care, or if they intend to work with Democrats.
Well, we have to be prepared to do it without them, but we hope we can do it with them. I mean, the fundamental debate, I think, is going to be, how the tax cuts are allocated. I think there's general agreement that our business tax rate in America is too high, and that's discouraging job creation. I think the real fight will be on the personal taxes, and people don't realize, but people watching this program, if they have a small business, do, that a lot of small businesses in America are what they call pass-through companies. They're paying their taxes on their personal rates. When we're talking about lowering taxes on people, that often means a small business. The portion I'm most focused on, from my perspective, I support all those other things we just discussed, is the increase in the child tax credit. The cost of raising children has grown rapidly over the last 15, 20 years. The tax credit has been flat. People watching that are raising kids, getting ready to go back to school, they know how expensive it is to raise kids, but the tax credit hasn't changed. So we're working hard with the White House and hopefully with Democrats to increase the child tax credit for working families.
And joining us now, Chris Hand, co-author of this book, America, the Owner's Manual, written with former Senator Bob Graham. I know you worked for the senator, so you've got some Washington experience. We're going to draw on that a little bit here this morning. Let's start with what Senator Rubio mentioned. How do you feel about tax reform efforts on Capitol Hill? I know that this is where the president, when the first item on his agenda didn't go forward, he said, well, we'll move on and we got to do something with tax reform.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where the House and the Senate and the White House go now that the health care debate is over, and if they're able to pull together a consensus tax reform or tax cut package. Remember, taxes are a very complicated legislative issue. If it's tax reform, that involves probably eliminating some potentially popular deductions from the tax code. If it's a tax cut, that's a straight just sort of changing of rates. There's a lot of process that goes involved with that. If it's tax reform, it has to be deficit neutral. If the Republicans that lead the Senate want to pass this with a majority as opposed to 60 votes, they have to make sure that it's deficit neutral. So while I think this is a more straightforward legislative initiative than maybe health care was, I think it's still going to be complicated to get to the majorities they need to get a bill to President Trump's desk.
Focus with me on that first part of his answer, and the question we asked, is this going to be a bipartisan effort? Is this something that could be really good for America in general, that the singular Senate Republican proposal on health care didn't go forward? Does it now force lawmakers to say, okay, we do have to work together and cross those party lines?
Well, you would hope so. We haven't seen a lot of that in Washington in recent years, but there's no question, Kent, over the scope of American history, the most important policy initiatives that have passed over time have been those that have been done with bipartisan support. Quite frankly, one of the big surprises of the first 6 months of the Trump administration and this new Congress is that they didn't lead with infrastructure, which could have easily been a bipartisan initiative. Everyone agrees it's needed. The American Society for Civil Engineers says we have a $2 trillion infrastructure gap that has to be filled by 2025. That would have been a ready-made bipartisan issue. So I think certainly people would recommend to the House and to the Senate and the President, if you want to achieve big things legislatively, you can't do it with one party alone. It takes both.
You needed a home run in that first effort, I think. That's is what right. Some people are saying. I want you to hear from Senator Rubio again, and I want to get your comments. Senator Rubio discussing health care reform, too. Now, he says he's holding out some optimism that is, on retooling the efforts to replace the Affordable Care Act.
I hope so. I mean, I haven't moved on. I think procedurally there's some other issues we have to take care of, and we need to focus on those things like the debt limit. This week we're working on an FDA bill that has in it my law that helps with pediatric cancer research and things of that nature. But ultimately I was elected in 2010 and re-elected on a very specific pledge, and that is to repeal and to replace Obamacare. It's a pledge I intend to do everything I can to keep, and that includes, repealing it and replacing it with something that's better for Florida.
Better for Florida is something people in Florida like to hear, but hey, maintaining health care, if they previously didn't have health care, is also pretty important. Where does this go? And is it dead, or is there still some life to this idea of replacing the Affordable Care Act?
Well, in our book, Kent, we talk about the principle that there are no permanent victories or losses in American politics. And it's always possible that something that's been defeated can come back. That said, it's very clear the legislative momentum right now is going in directions other than health care, whether that's tax reform, tax cuts. The president rolled out a very controversial immigration proposal this past week. So the momentum is clearly pointed in other directions. If there's going to be another attempt at health care, again, I think the consensus is that's going to have to be a bipartisan attempt to fix the parts of Obamacare that both parties agree could use some tweaking, and try to do this in a consensus way as opposed to just one party alone acting on the issue.
Let's talk about what's happening in Pennsylvania Avenue there in the White House. Widely discussed that Mr. Scaramucci was the White House communications officer, and here's some video of him, for about 10 days, about 6 of those working days, I guess, and then he was out. A lot of people say this contributes to another news item we've seen, and that's the latest Quinnipiac University poll. It found that just 33% of American voters approve of how President Trump is performing as president. Just 1/3 give him a thumbs up, so to speak. 61% saying that they disapprove of the president's performance. What does this mean for a president, any president, trying to lead, trying to make trying to establish what his priorities are and get things done?
Well, there's a few principles for modern presidential administration that I think this presidency has probably violated. One is that the most important commodity you have is time. Particularly as a new president, you don't have time to waste. You have to move on your major initiatives and get some wins on the board early on. Another principle is don't fight internal battles. Instead, save that energy for the external battles that you need to have in order to advance your agenda moving forward. The third principle is, and you know this as a journalist, when you're talking off the record to a reporter, make sure you've said off the record before the conversation starts. All of this has contributed to this atmosphere of chaos, whether it's perceived or real, in the White House that's distracted attention for their ability to move their proactive agenda forward. It saps the political capital of administration, saps their political strength, and most importantly, takes away the precious time they have to be able to move their initiatives forward.
Yeah, for everyone in life, you've got to get to a point where you realize time is something I can never get more of or replace or all that sort of thing. Last thing, do you think the new Chief of Staff, General Kelly, will be able to change some of those dynamics inside the White House, and we'll wrap up after that?
Well, I think the key situation for any Chief of Staff is, can you manage down and manage up? I think General Kelly, over the course of his career, has shown that he's capable of managing down through various positions he's held. The key for this White House is going to be his ability to manage up. In the week now that he's been Chief of Staff, what we haven't seen is any decline in the number of tweets the president sent out, some of those more inflammatory statements that have gone around. So I think the key for his success will be how good is he not just at managing down and corralling the White House staff into a cohesive unit, how effective is he at managing up and making sure that the president stays on message and stays focused on the goals of the administration?
It's got to be tough for any president to figure out how to align those things up. But obviously, he's made a change. And here it is. We've got a new chief of staff. And obviously, General Kelly has some credentials behind him. Chris Hand, your credentials right here on the table with us. Appreciate you sharing a little bit of what's in the book as well and some of your experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Good to be here as always.
Well, stay with us. We're following an event for Corrine Brown and her court appearance tomorrow. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
It's Mattress Firm's coolest 72-hour sale and save the tax on the best brands, like Hampton & Rhodes Queen mattresses for just $209.99, plus save the tax. And while supplies last, get a free Yeti with select purchases, only at Mattress Firm.
Old McGimmick had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, with some mumbo-jumbo here and a marketing gimmick there. Here a gimmick, there a gimmick. Now who thinks chickens need a shrink? E-I-E-I, no. Now what do we have here? That's more like it. But on this farm we've got the facts, E-I-E-I-O. And on our farm we take great care, E-I-E-I-O. With some common sense here and some hearty food there. Here a chicken, there a chicken, everywhere a happy chicken, E-I-E-I-O. E-I-E-I-O. That's Sanderson Farms. Good, honest chicken.
I'll drop and speak a charm. Take the weather in your heart. And away from on your tongue.
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Gloria always went big. So we helped her plan a memorial service that no one would soon forget. This one's for you, Gloria. Only a Dignity Memorial professional can celebrate a life like no other. Find out how at dignityjacksonville.com.
The Morning Show on Channel 4 makes mornings happen.
People tell me at the grocery store that we're just like family. We love that.
What you doing? Wasting time? Well, on the morning show, we're not going to waste your time.
But we are going to let you know if those pesky showers are going to mess up your day.
We'll bring you important news from wherever it happens.
The Morning Show on Channel 4 makes mornings happen.
Don't forget, enable push alerts for breaking news on the go.
And here's the answer to our citizens quiz. The Constitution begins, "We the people." So our question is, what did the Constitution do? And here you go. Sets up the government, defines the government, and protects basic rights of Americans. Bonus points for you if you knew that dividing power between the national government and the state government is called federalism, and that the founding fathers who wrote the Constitution, they're called the framers. A commercial that hit the airwaves this past week grabbed a lot of attention. It advertises a concert to raise money for former Congresswoman and convicted felon Corrine Brown. It started running just a few days before Brown's next hearing in federal court tomorrow. The group called Friends of Corrine Brown putting on the concert. It takes place at the same church where Brown claimed on her tax returns that she donated money. Well, that's a claim a federal court jury concluded was a lie. In May, the jury convicted Brown on 18 of 22 corruption charges, including mail fraud, wire fraud, tax fraud, all connected to an unregistered charity, One Door for Education. So Monday, she and her attorney are going to court as she tries to get a new trial. Brown told us this week that she has a right to hold a fundraiser at her home church, especially if she has paid for the venue.
Excited while I'm sitting here. So many people in the community, everywhere I go, said they're praying for me. I need them to come out and pray with me.
Wednesday, former Congresswoman Corrine Brown began making rounds to promote a fundraiser that will be held at Bethel Baptist in Jacksonville. It's the same church Brown claims she donated to on her tax returns. Prosecutors in the case claim the numbers didn't add up.
I don't see this controversy because, once again, I'm her pastor. And let's say that is true. She wouldn't be the first. You know, and I'm not saying that is true. I stay out of that. I'm not her legal, I'm her spiritual counselor.
Bishop Rudolph McKissick Jr. says the group Friends of Corrine Brown paid for the venue and the church will not be benefiting from the fundraiser. Brown says the event at her home church shouldn't be a problem.
You know, that's not an issue. I've sold my beach house that I own with my brother. I've cashed in my retirement, but I'm still having additional legal fees, and I'm going to pay my legal fees and do whatever it takes to get my name cleared.
Brown says the hearing Monday involves two motions. One is for an acquittal and one is for a new trial. She says she'll be letting her attorney do all the talking, but she hopes her community is praying. And changes are coming to children's programs in Jacksonville. This week, the mayor said that he is doing away with the Children's Commission and Jacksonville Journey, going to make them one group. Mayor Lenny Curry made that announcement before a packed house at Sally Mathis Elementary School. And the mayor says that he'll be introducing legislation to form the Kids Hope Alliance. And it's going to have one goal, he says, to help local kids, and that's something that he believes parents support. So this new unified program, it'll be called the Kids Hope Alliance, and the mayor's saying that the new organization is going to take the best of both programs that they're getting rid of and the $36 million allocated to those programs, try and find the best way to help children and really to keep them safe. The mayor says when this passes, there will be a transition, and at that point, he says he'll appoint the new board, and then they'll hire their own director. All right, well, This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. We appreciate you joining us today. Coming up, former Congressman Jason Altmaier plans to join us next week. We're also trying to get you connected to one of the candidates for Attorney General in Florida. Her name is Ashley Moody. She's got some Jacksonville connections. We'll walk you through that as well. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and online at newsforjax.com.
Now, more than ever before, more people get their news from News 4 Jax, Jacksonville's #1 source for local news.